Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and it's Hump Day. And with me, as always, is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome all listeners to Wednesday. Hopefully your day is hexcellent.
That was your face was so serious.
I couldn't help it. I love that word.
I like that. Hexcellent.
Hexcellent.
Voyse and I enjoy reading and talking about stories from the internet that are interesting, funny, and dramatic. Because of our love of stories, we've come together and created this channel to share with you those experiences.
And hopefully give you some food for thought.
Well, why don't we jump right into the story so I'll enjoy my morning cup of brew. What did you make today?
I made you an interesting concoction. I was thinking about your wellness and your health, so I made some rooibos tea, ginger, turmeric, sunflower petals, and a little bit of cocoa powder.
Oh, my health, huh?
Your health.
Whoa. Why? There's a lot of flavor in that. That's a 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
I like the chocolate at the very end.
Right? It's just that little bit of like almost milkiness.
Yeah.
I try.
So are we ready to get into the stories?
Oh, yes. For any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below. For our first story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister's husband to stop buying my daughter boy toys? Hey, I'm in a pickle.
Hey.
I'm in a pickle. My sister's husband keeps buying my daughter toys and clothes that one associates with boys, and some of them are not cheap either. My daughter is 2, and she does take after her father, and in boy clothing, she often gets mistaken as a boy. My daughter does enjoy the toys, and I can see past it since he loves his niece. Her father does not, and I am sick of hearing his mouth, and to be honest, I also do get annoyed seeing him treat her like a boy. I would much rather he stop gifting her things, but he just cannot say no to her. I get it that I have a dated view, but it is frustrating when people mistake her for a boy. I have tried to have a conversation with him, but he is argumentative by nature. What do you expect from an autistic attorney? I hate the fact he comes at me with a logical response to my emotional plea. He is disrespecting my wishes as a parent. So I told him if he cannot stop buying her stuff, then he cannot see her. My sister is upset with me because he told her. I just explained I do not want my daughter to be viewed as a boy. She is already seen as one. My sister told me to get over my issues and stop projecting shit on my daughter. So I told her if she cannot respect my issues, then she is also free to never see her again either. Our mom thinks I am blowing this out of proportion, but I feel as a parent my request was reasonable, and all he had to do was respect my wishes instead of talking down and disregarding my concerns. Edited typos and spelling mistakes that I caught. Am I the a-hole?
What an interesting spicy meatball to start Wednesday off with. So we have a concerned mother. That's our OP. She has a daughter who is 2, and she has a brother-in-law that insists on buying clothes and items for the 2-year-old that are more aimed towards male.
Correct.
Now, I can understand kind of what she's saying about how they refute her going, you know, you're putting that label on there because blue doesn't necessarily have to be male. So I can get those type of topics. But I guess we'll get to the fundamental wrong here. The uncle in this situation is gifting the 2-year-old things that he wants to give her. The mom says she doesn't like that because now it's reinforcing that people believe that her daughter is a boy, and the mother doesn't want that. Should she have to feel like she has to put those clothes on and give her child those items? I don't see why she has to do any of that. Just because someone gifts you something doesn't mean you have to use it, because it does sound like her family likes to walk over boundaries. They don't really see anything from her point of view. She says that when they do have these confrontations about the uncle giving the gifts, that they refute her with logical answers to her emotional plights. Now, that's an odd thing to say, because I'm certain that probably got a lot of eyebrows raised when they heard that in the story, was if it's logical and that you can see it's a logical point, why are you having a problem with it? Does she answer that for us at all?
No, it doesn't look like she answered that particular question.
Okay. Well, they have the back and forth, and now she says to her brother-in-law and her sister that because they aren't following what she wants them to do as far as continually buying the boys' items, that she's just cutting them off completely from visitation.
Correct.
Which you kind of are in this middle ground, right? She's the mom. She's saying that she doesn't want them to gift her 2-year-old these items anymore. I don't understand why they couldn't have respected that. But on the other hand, I can also see where, in my mind, if that's how they wanted to be, I would probably have just donated the clothes and the items that they gave me, because I'm not an onus to use those items for my child. My question would be why the uncle in the situation is pushing to give the boy items to the 2-year-old girl.
It sounds like it might just be a particular taste, potentially.
Okay.
So a lot of the gifts that the OP actually puts in the comment section that she says was gifted to her daughter were clothes that were particularly from the boys section, toys that had to do with Star Wars, like a little lightsaber.
That's not a boy or a girl thing.
But that's where perspective is key. And apparently that's where when that lightsaber was, the first lightsaber was gotten for her 2-year-old, the 2-year-old couldn't pick it up. So he actually got one custom made so that she could wave it around and have fun with it. But apparently it's too boyish. He's gotten her action figures. And I'm assuming if it's along the vines of Star Wars, you're talking about action figures and it's not considered a doll. Even though for me, action figures and dolls are essentially almost the same thing.
All right. Well, I mean, that kind of sheds a little more light in my perspective. Maybe she is being a little too sensitive to it and not just appreciating that it's just toys at the end of the day. A lightsaber isn't male or female.
And I can understand if there's a cool Star Wars shirt that you would more than likely see really cool Star Wars shirts in the boys section than you would in the girls.
Sure.
Now, not to say that everything Star Wars, those were just examples that she put out there. But in my mind, a lot of the times when you have individuals that are into things like Star Wars, they tend to be into superheroes too.
Sure.
So if he's also getting her superhero stuff, those would all be technically considered boy toys. When you're talking about these kind of perspectives, that tends to be the way that they are. Now, a lot of people are breaking down those walls.
I mean, you should be. A superhero isn't tied to just being a boy or a girl. You know, maybe it's odd to me because I have never been in that mind space where I looked at Star Wars or anything like that and went, okay, obviously only males can like this.
So now I ask you a question, because when she's talking about boy clothes, when you're talking about a shirt for a 2-year-old, aside from it having a bunch of little ruffles and potentially looking like a teeny tiny dress, if you take away those ruffles, would not a shirt for a boy and a girl almost look the same at that age?
Sure. You know what I was thinking was? I was thinking they were buying her items that had like boy on it. You know what I mean? Like the word boy of some sort. You know, I thought maybe that was her hang up.
No, apparently her hang up is that on the tag itself, it says that it's boys.
Okay.
Not
so as soon as she sees that, it doesn't really matter what is on the item.
Based on how she's phrasing it, correct.
So this is a very interesting story because at the end of the day, she is the parent and she gets to choose what she puts on her 2-year-old.
If you'd like, I can shed just a little more light into why I think she's got such a hang up regarding boys and girls concerning her daughter.
Go for it.
So she has made mention to in her comments that her daughter has been mistaken for being a little boy many times. So many times, in fact, that even when she puts a dress on her daughter, a lot of people still mistake her for a little boy.
So I wonder why that's happening.
I think she's trying to overcompensate because maybe she sees it as a slight for her daughter, but it's a little 2-year-old.
Yeah.
There have been many times where 2-year-olds, you really can't tell one or the other if it's a boy or a girl, aside from having specific colors or a little ribbon in the hair. And it's not to say that it's offensive. It's just when you're that small, a lot of the times you don't get very many either feminine or masculine features until you get a little older.
Sure. So are we saying she's just a little more sensitive because that stuff has been going on?
Correct. She has talked about it, how it's frustrating, how even when her daughter wears a dress, people still mistake her for a little boy.
What an interesting mindset to have over a 2-year-old. that it's almost maybe an attack on herself as the mother, that
Possibly.
her daughter doesn't, to her anyway, come off as female to people.
But it's just a little child.
Yeah. See, at the onset, maybe I do think about it and go, she's the parent. She does get to choose what happens. But I feel like her reaction to the family and cutting them off, for them just simply saying like a lightsaber or action figures, any other thing that they have gotten for their niece, that it has to be categorized solely as girl, that is the only way that she's going to accept it for her daughter, that's very wrong. Well, at the end of the day, for me, I guess I have to say that everyone sucks in this situation. For OP, it's that she's threatening to cut off family for what she views as, I guess, a slight against her daughter, which I don't believe that's where the uncle is coming from with the gifts. But I also have to say that on the other side, you have the uncle and the sister that are pushing it, even though they know that's how our OP feels. At the end of the day, she does have a right to her feelings, whether or not they're logical or illogical. She's allowed to feel what she feels. So for them to keep pushing it and then argue with her to the point where she has to post this up, it sounds pretty extreme in my mind.
Well, the consensus is that our OP is the a-hole. And a lot of it stems down to your child is just 2. This whole fight and argument is really quite silly. It's just a 2-year-old. Just let them enjoy the toys. Do or don't dress them up in the clothes. Now, let me go ahead and actually provide you with my own perspective based on my own experiences with this. So, before I was even born, and I was still in my mother's stomach, the doctors had told my mother that I was supposed to be a boy. Unfortunately, my mom put a lot of hope because she was excited to have a boy and decided to dress up the room in blue and trains. And when I came out, I was very much a girl. Unfortunately, at that time, the perspectives on a girl having a blue room with a bunch of trains wasn't I would suppose, the trend. And because of that, they had to change everything over. But it was still a story that was kind of funny for all of us to hear. However, I have always felt the pressure of trying to be more feminine for whatever reason from my mother. To wear things that were more feminine, to not be into things that were considered boyish. I can't tell you how excited I was when my father got me a remote control car because I really wanted one. But coming from parents who were divorced, my mother looked very down on this because it wasn't a very feminine thing for me to enjoy. It wasn't for a little girl. I feel that pressure when it comes to understanding growing up from a young age, the perspectives on what you should be versus the things that you do like. And the things that I liked growing up really were a lot of boy things. During a lot of my high school life, I wore my dad's old shirts because I thought it was my own little particular trend. I bet you there were probably hundreds of girls out there that thought that it was really trendy to wear their dad's old shirts. But I felt more comfortable in that than in a lot of the girly clothes that my mother used to throw at me to try and get me to play my role or dress my part. I feel when I read this poster's perspective that this might be the unfortunate role that her daughter is going to have to endure. That it's no longer just a toy for her child to enjoy because she has gender stereotyped it, whatever she wanted, and it can no longer be enjoyed for what it just is. When you're talking about throwing down the walls between social norms and what is for a boy and what is for a girl, I feel like that's very much our times right now. I think some things stem too far in one direction and too far the other. No matter what, every side should be respected. But when you realize that your emotional response is being combated with a more logical response, that maybe you should give a little bit more credence to that logical argument. That maybe there should be a little bit of reflection into why it is that you feel that way. For me, I wonder if our poster potentially had this issue growing up where maybe she had the problem where people looking at her thought she was a boy based on how she dressed.
Could be. Maybe that's why she's overcompensating for it now.
I think no matter what, The joy of just growing up and experiencing things should be just that.
Yep.
And even to this day, I really don't talk to my mother when it comes to my joys on what I know she views as a more masculine type interest. I hope that she doesn't create these rifts between her daughter and herself, because she's going to be missing out on a lot of joys that she could otherwise have.
I can agree with that.
Well, let's go on to our next story and see what's happening with the husband's career choice. For our next story, am I the a-hole for telling my husband to consider another specialty? My 30 female and my husband 30 male, we have been together for 7 years, and our top one rule is communication. Whenever I'm bothered by something, we talk it out. My husband is on his last year of medical school, and I've been nothing but supportive to him. Today, I was talking with him regarding what specialty he wants to go into, and he told me he wants OBGYN. I said, "Oh, okay," and looked a little down. To be honest, I was annoyed when he said that he noticed and asked me what's wrong. I told him that it's nothing, but I don't feel comfortable with the idea you're going to work as an OBGYN doctor. You will be examining females' genitalias, and if you love me, you would consider another specialty. But eventually I can't do anything about it. It's your career, eventually. He said that he loves me, and I can't make him choose between his work and me. It's unfair. I told him it's up to him. I can't do anything about it. All I did here is express my concerns, and it's up to him what specialty he wants to go into. I have zero authority. When I told my friend about the situation, she called me an abusive a-hole, even though all I did was express my thoughts. Am I the a-hole?
I like how at the very tail end of her story, she's like, I'm not in control, but she 100% sounds like she's very abusive and controlling within her relationship. So we'll get into the story. OP, did they say their ages?
They're both 30.
Okay. So he's almost through medical school, and now he's specializing. And she says that her husband wants to be an OBGYN.
Correct.
For our OP, she hears this and goes, I'm going to feel uncomfortable with what you're doing professionally, so you can't do that. Because she may not say that word for word, but she says, you're picking between me and your line of work. When would we accept that from anyone in any type of situation when it comes to what you're doing professionally? Would that be acceptable to do in any regard?
I wouldn't accept it.
He's gone through medical school. That probably took 7+ years to get to where he's at now.
To actually be a doctor, yes.
She's saying that she's being supportive, but she's telling him the one thing you're choosing to do, I'm not going to be happy with you doing. I wonder what else she's done, because it sounds to me when she writes that she does get to call a lot of the shots, that it's not very open to conversation. She says it right there. We have good communication, and when I'm upset, we talk. I didn't hear her say when he's upset and have something to say that they actually communicate. That might be just me reading too much into that one sentence. I can understand, and you're allowed to have the feelings you do. You're allowed to communicate with your partner about things that bother you, even if it is in their profession. But what you're not allowed to do is give nasty ultimatums like that, where you put them into such a corner that you're making them choose between what they've aimed to do with their professional careers and you? No. And if you're at that stage where people are giving you ultimatums in a relationship, it's not a relationship. Yeah, OP, you're definitely the wiener jacket.
Well, the consensus, the OP is definitely the a-hole. And I find it funny that you actually pointed out her wording when it came to when I'm bothered, we talk it out, rather than when we're bothered with something, we talk it out. Because a lot of commenters actually picked up on that as well. And they said, this is probably more accurate on your relationship. Now, let me go ahead and bring up some other points that commenters pointed out that I really do agree with here. Right now in the United States, there's a medical shortage of doctors, and anybody going into the medical field, period, whether it's actually doctors, nurses, or anything of the sorts.
There's been a mass exodus all across the world.
A lot of people, I don't think, want to deal with those types of struggles anymore. Now, let me go on to the other points that our commenters in Reddit actually pointed out. It doesn't matter if you're an OBGYN or any type of other doctor. The chances of you seeing some form of genitalia will potentially be there.
Sure.
If you're in the emergency room and someone did something wrong with their ding dong, Guess who's going to be seeing some genitalia?
My doctor.
Right there, a lot of individuals said you can't stop him from seeing intimate areas. More than likely, you're going to be seeing some intimate form of the body when it comes to somebody of the opposite sex or somebody of the same sex.
Well, she's definitely sounds like she's insecure.
Oh, hands down. I think she's correlating rather than saying my husband's being an OBG and is treating these patients.
She's looking at it like a sexual deviant.
Correct. He's treating these women.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of it starts to go off the rails for her. And what a lot of commenters put down, OBGYNs don't find this to be a lavish job.
Sure.
It's not something that they enjoy. And a lot of them gave their perspectives and stories on people that they know that work that field that says it is not the glamorous thing that you think it is. I think a lot of the commenters try to really put down that doctors who go into these specific fields where, yeah, he might be more likely and is going to encounter more private areas, tend to compartmentalize their work more than other doctors do. You need to take it for what it is and that your husband's just trying to be professional in his field. Well, let's go ahead and leave the doctor in the office. And let's go to our next story and see what's happening here. Am I the a-hole if I don't stop drinking after my son asked? My wife passed away a year ago in a car accident, and it has been really hard. I miss her a lot, and it would be hard to move on if not for my son. My son and I are very close, and he is a great kid. He never causes any trouble and has been very supportive. He is 16 now, and mostly looks after himself. But we got into a fight a couple of days ago, and he hasn't been the same since. We were on a trip, driving across country. My son was as animated as ever. He was telling me about every little thing that came to his mind, including his thoughts on movies, fun history facts, etc. Then a few days ago, on the 1-year anniversary of his mother's death, I went out and got plastered. I usually drink a good bit, but I wouldn't call myself an alcoholic. I do work every day and provide for my family. He greeted me when I got home at midnight. He said, "Dad, you've been drinking a lot and I don't think it's good for you, and I've been really lonely without you. I think if you stop drinking so much, that would be best." I lost my mind at him. I have no idea what came over me. I said, "Don't I look after you? Don't I take care of you? How dare you question how I relax in my free time? I pay for everything, don't I? You're acting so spoiled and entitled and bratty." He immediately started crying and apologizing, and for some reason seeing him cry set me off more. I said, "Don't cry. No son of mine is going to cry like a child. I'm embarrassed of you." I have no idea where any of this came from. I felt horrible the next morning when I woke up. I apologized and told him over and over again that I love him. He's not any of those horrible things I called him, and it's okay to cry, especially in front of me. He accepted all of my apologies immediately, said it wasn't necessary. He said it was his fault for asking me to stop drinking. He said he knows I drink to deal with Mom's death, and it makes me feel better. It was wrong of me to ask, especially when it's the anniversary of her death. You did nothing wrong. I wish I could do that, so I can't fault you for doing it. He said you were right to yell at me for crying. I was being a kid. I repeated it was okay to cry, and it wasn't his fault. I made a comment that he must think I'm a horrible person, and he said no. He knows how a person acts at their worst moment does not define them. He said he knows I'm a good person. Such a great kid I have. It didn't assuage my guilt in the slightest, though, especially because since that horrible night, he has become a ghost in the car with me. He does not speak about random stuff anymore, seems weary to even brush up against me. I asked again if he had a problem with the drinking, and he said absolutely not. I asked if he was upset, and he said he promises he isn't. Am I the a-hole? Should I give it up, or is it a fair coping mechanism once in a while? He said it was 100% fine, but I'm worried that he could be lying.
So, I guess I'll start this story off with this. I think this is terribly fake. There is way too much introspection going on with the OP and his son, and for there to be a misunderstanding, I don't believe that even a little bit. Just in case it is real, because it might be. He already points it out that he lost his wife about a year ago, and the anniversary of that is happening. He's on a road trip with his son a couple days prior, I guess, and they're having a great time. His son is opening up to him, talking to him again. I'm not sure if there was he doesn't actually say if the son, when the mother passes, went into a depression as well, or if there was a time period where he wasn't talking to him and opening up the way he is on this road trip. I don't hear that anywhere, but he is opening himself up during this trip, and they're having a good time. They get back home from the trip, and he says on the anniversary, he goes out drinking. He tells us that he doesn't drink very often, which my question would be, he says he gets home at midnight, and he remembers this clearly. He went out for a night of drinking. How did he get home? Does he explain that he got dropped off, or is he drunk driving?
Doesn't say.
Okay. So he gets home and he has this fully lucid and aware conversation with his son at midnight, getting home after drinking a lot. You're not having that conversation and being that aware if you're plastered. So he has this conversation with his son plastered, where his son tells him everything he needs to know, lays it all out there. Because the truth is, in this situation, if it's real, his son is hurting just as much as he would be. He lost his mother. He says he's alone. Obviously, you would be the a-hole. That alone, in and of itself, is the most important thing here. You are not the only one to lose someone. Your son needs you.
Well, the consensus is that he's definitely the a-hole. And you're the only one that seems to feel that this is potentially fake. But I can actually get it from your perspective. Although you would understand this a bit more than I would when it comes to empathizing with the situation and being able to see particular loopholes in these scenarios. Now, let me go ahead and bring forward what some of the commenters put down. They said, "You sound abusive, and this is awful." Our poster actually combated that back and said, "I've never abused my son at all. And that the only time that I ever yelled at him aside from this was when he accidentally scratched the car once. It was apparently some sort of issue." There was a Reddit commenter that actually asked, "So what, you left him alone on this road trip?" And the OP actually said he did. He actually left him alone in the hotel that they had been
Oh, this
on
happened
this road
on the
trip.
road trip. I thought
Correct.
this happened afterwards.
No, this happened on the
Okay.
road trip. But that on the anniversary, he went out and went drinking. And then,
By the way, if it is a real story, you should never drink unhappy. Like,
never.
that's something you should learn very early on in your life is drink to celebrate. Don't drink to be in your sorrows. It doesn't do you any good, and it's a deep hole you can dig for yourself very quickly. But I will like to say, if it is a real story, I don't mean any disrespect. It's more just there's too much of it that doesn't make sense to me, having lived through my experiences.
Well, our OP did put in the comments that his son saying that it was okay for him to keep drinking, he had really hoped that he would say that because he just wanted another excuse to keep drinking. He did let commenters know based on their suggestions that he's going to go into AA and that he's definitely going to look for therapy for him and his son. All we can do is wish them the best. Well, let's go ahead and leave this situation behind, and hopefully, if it is real, that they get the help that they need. And let's go to our next story. Am I the a-hole for thinking my wife overreacted when an elderly lady touched our kid? Hey, Reddit.
Hey,
I need a tiebreaker vote here. Our family and friends are divided here. My wife and I went shopping. I went to a different aisle to get some jerky. I heard my wife scream, "Help!" So I ran over, and she was freaking out because an elderly woman hugged our son. You can tell the woman was harmless. The woman's son came along and profusely stating that she had dementia and she meant no harm, that she tends to view every child as her child. I said it was okay, and I myself apologized for my wife's overreaction. During this time, I was not paying attention, and my wife called 911 and called over security. It became a huge mess for all parties because my wife was not letting the issue go. You could also tell the son was extremely embarrassed, as was I. I was trying to relax my wife, but she was going on a complete meltdown rage, saying that his mother should be in a home if she cannot keep her hands to herself. What if she got our kid sick, tried to kidnap him, got combative, and hurt him? All of which I agree are possible outcomes, but I told her none of that happened, so let's just leave it. Security states since the wife called the police, we had to wait for them to show up so they can file a report as per their store policy. About 25 minutes later, police showed up and asked what happened, and my wife explained everything. You can tell the police were like, what the fuck is wrong with this woman? I felt nothing but disappointment. Police took the statement and started laughing as they left. I gave the son of the elderly mom a fist bump and said sorry. My wife was upset I did not have her side. She was upset how I took the side of the son instead of her. I explained his mom was clearly sick. It was a harmless gesture, and explained she was the one that acted unreasonably. I did acknowledge her concerns, but nothing bad happened. We could have just let it slide and went on with our day. She told me I failed as a husband. So we ran the story by our family and friends. It is a 50-50 split. So my brother-in-law said this would be a funny story for Am I the A-hole? He frequents the sub. So Reddit, Am I the A-hole? Sorry, forgot to add our kid is 19 months old.
What a spicy might be. Man, the stories you've picked today, so good.
It's a hexcellent day.
It has definitely been that. So let's get into the details. OP says that he is out at a store with his wife and their 19-month-old child. They're at a store right now, and he happens to go to a different aisle than his wife.
To get some jerky.
Yeah. His wife has the kid, and he hears her scream for help. So he comes over, and he sees that his 19-month is being hugged by an elderly woman. Now, the mother in this situation proceeds to freak out, call security, call the police. But I'm almost certain she did that well after she was made aware that the elderly lady has dementia. I'm almost certain that that's probably how it worked out. Because I'm willing to bet that the elderly woman's son came over and tried to explain the situation. Because I'm certain he's had that happen more than once.
Correct.
Unfortunately, my mother had dementia and passed away several years ago. This is something that I'm very familiar with. To not have the understanding blows my mind. To have it be explained to you by the son and for your wife to continue with it, not only with the security, but then to file a complaint with the police about the elderly woman. After knowing the details, that's disgusting. Yes, I understand all the what ifs, but that's not what this situation was. A little bit of understanding would have gone a long way. You made that situation 10 times worse than it had to be. My question would be to the wife, what were you doing with the 19-month-old where you allowed enough time to lapse between you looking at them and for someone to come up to you, grab your baby, and hug them? What were you doing that had you so lax in a public setting? Because anytime I've ever been anywhere with our child, I've been very aware of what it is they're doing and what other people are doing around us. I think it's a gross showing of your wife's humanity. She clearly doesn't understand what dementia is. I'm almost certain you probably tried to explain it to her as well because you understood. Now, maybe fist bumping the guy on your way out in front of your wife, maybe that's asking for something. But in no world, OP, do I believe that you're the a-hole. I definitely think you need to have a conversation with your wife, though. Her compassion is none.
Well, the consensus is overwhelmingly he is not the a-hole. In fact, let me go ahead and read you 2 of his comments that I thought brought a little bit more to light. Before I do that, let me go ahead and read the edit that he actually put into his main post. First and foremost, thanks. Secondly, I just noticed I put overrated instead of overreacted. At this point, I will see myself out. As a couple of posters suggested, I asked my wife if she wants to share her side. At this point, I am going to drop it. And if she wants to keep the Civil War going, that is on her. I will take the criticisms and feedback to heart. Been a good read though. Back to my main and looking at BG3 subreddit. Let me go ahead and read to you a couple of his comments. The first one says, she comes from a well-off family, so they never really had to worry about that kind of stuff. Which is why I am partly shocked her side of the family is mostly in agreement with me that she overreacted. The second post that he put down was, I reassured her that our kid and her were safe and no harm was done. What more could I have done? Take it to the streets and beat the son? Joined her in yelling at the son and the mother? That is the validation she is seeking. She wanted me to be on her side no matter what. She wanted me to take lead in validating her fears and confirming she had something to be afraid of. As I told her, she was fine for calling for help, but after it was determined no harm was done, that should have been the end of it. Telling the son his mom should be in a home is 100% uncalled for. Telling the son he was wrong for not watching his mom is 100% uncalled for. If that was the case, then we were also in the wrong.
Yes. Like I said, what was the mother doing at the time?
I actually really enjoyed a lot of what this poster put down in the comments. You can definitely tell he was trying to absorb what people were saying, but was also trying to provide why he had his stance. He put down several places he did his best to reassure his wife. He tried to calm her down and bring her down from the ledge when it came to her being really emotional in that one instance. But once it was shown that everything was fine, there should have been more understanding and compassion on her part that he just didn't see, and he doesn't understand why it wasn't there.
That's my biggest concern is you got told what was going on and what that elderly lady was suffering from well before you got the police there. Why was there no understanding? I guess maybe the only thing I can think of would be she was so shell-shocked in the moment about it happening that way. But at some point, especially as an adult, you have to compose yourself after the fact, right? It's not what happens to you. It's how you react to it.
I think in this regards, dementia is one of those illnesses that honestly truly scares me. It's not where you see your body slowly dying, but where you're dying and you don't even know it. It's something that happens in your mind. And the one thing that differentiates all of us as different people is our memories and our feelings and how we think. To lose those parts is honestly very terrifying. And for someone not to understand that this man is watching parts of his mother fade from in front of him. Timstradamus, you know how that feels. And doesn't give two darns about it because something inconvenienced her wrong. And it's so baffling to me.
I get where the husband says she had every right to yell out for help. It was a situation. I get that.
And all of her concerns were valid because
Sure.
it could have been anything that could have
You're
happened.
right. She could have ran off with the kid. Harm could have been done to the child. But when you understand, when the moment's passed and you're sitting there waiting for the cops to get there, but you've already been told what happened. There's probably like 10, 15 minutes before 911 was called and then they came. In that time period.
It took the police 25 minutes to get there.
And then in that time period, why couldn't you have then seen and given some type of credence and calmness to the situation? Why did it have to be at 100 because you couldn't identify with her?
Well, I really do wish that son and his mother the best. That journey is going to be a tough one for them. And I do commend our OP. He stood his ground. I know usually we're for standing with each other, but if one of us saw something that was grievously wrong, Timstradamus, call me out. Do it politely, but call me out.
We have communications. It's important to find people. And this is my biggest piece of advice to like anyone, especially when you're looking to date and get married at some point with someone. Make sure your values align. It just sounds like, especially with this type of couple, their values are very different. And you're going to find out later on in your relationship that that's going to split you faster than anything else. More than money, occupation. You have to align on those. And if she's going to keep up with that, where she's not going to let that go, that's going to fester into something really nasty later.
I definitely agree with that viewpoint.
Values and morals come first.
Well, let's go ahead and leave this situation behind and go to our very last story and see what you think about this.
Hopefully they've been better than the last two.
No. Am I the a-hole for implying that my girlfriend's brothers are irresponsible? I, 21 male, have been dating my girlfriend, Alice, 25 female, for almost a month. We are already considering moving in together because I have almost finished my degree. She lives with her parents in a small town on the coast. I live in the city which is about 3 hours from her house. I've always told her to come live in the city with me, but she tells me no. But she doesn't tell me why. I suppose it's because she's taking care of her parents who are getting old. Yesterday, it was her birthday party, and we were talking about it, and her 2 brothers arrived. Pete, 30s male, who lives with his wife and son in the city, and Owen, 18 male, who just moved to the city for college. Pete is a musician who has a small bar, and Owen is studying accounting or something. My girlfriend is an influencer. In the party, it was also her cousin Lucy, 22 female, who is a friend of mine. 'Cause we met in college, Lucy introduced us. We began talking, and Alice said that she really liked her town and couldn't see herself leaving there. So I said yes, because she was left responsible for her parents. I said that my girlfriend was a person who was not selfish and would never leave her parents in the countryside to go to the city. I think her brothers were offended because they left. After that, Lucy told me that this was disrespectful, that my girlfriend's parents are not old, and if I thought that she was also irresponsible because she went to study in the city, I told her no because her situation is different. Alice agreed with me and says that she misses her brothers a lot, and she is always the one who has to keep an eye on her parents, drive them, and do their shopping. Maybe I'm the a-hole, but I think my sister's brothers have also been a-holes for leaving the parents alone and my girlfriend in charge. Am I the a-hole?
All right. Well, this seems like a very interesting story with a little bit of missing information. Do they give any more details on this story in the comment section?
There's actually an edit in the post. Let me go ahead and read that for you and see if that offers a bit of a filler for this gap.
Okay.
Edit. Pete talked to me this morning. He said Alice was never going to move in with me. It wasn't that she took care of their parents, but because she's too comfortable in her parents' house and doesn't need to work since they pay for everything. I told him that she wasn't unemployed, that she was an influencer and her work is different. I told him that I would talk to Alice. I'll offer her to move in a house here in the coast as soon as I get my degree. I'll find a job in a local high school since I'll be a social studies teacher. We'll find a house near her parents, and she can be a full-time influencer, and I'll support her.
All right. So Pete is the brother, one of the brothers.
Yes, Pete is the oldest brother. He's in his 30s.
And he's contacted now ROP and told him the reason why Alice doesn't want to move in. Or will never leave her family's home.
Correct. She's comfortable where she's at.
Yeah, she doesn't have to pay bills. The parents got it. So I guess in return, though, Alice does things for their parents. That's what it sounds like to me, anyway.
Yes.
Goes around, grabs groceries or whatever household stuff they got. I guess maybe that's probably the deal they've created with her.
Potentially.
But what he made it sound like was that she's taking care of her elderly parents that can't possibly do anything on their own, which I guess is why the brothers were kind of off-put by that statement that he made to them at the get-together.
Her birthday party.
Yeah. And I can understand why that would have them looking a certain way because their parents probably aren't helpless and old, right?
Correct.
Okay. So is she a influencer?
We have to assume so.
Okay. So she is making money.
I'm
Is that what
assuming
we're
yes.
going to say? She is at least making money.
At least enough to fund her little lifestyle.
Okay.
Without worrying about rent, mortgage.
Yeah, everything that it takes to be out of your parents' home.
Major bills.
Yeah. Which is why, yes, it would make very much sense that she doesn't want to leave. Who am I to say how you should live your life? If that's the agreement you have with your folks, then that's the agreement you have with your folks. I guess we kind of already outlined most of this story. How old is he again?
21.
21. And his girlfriend is 27? 28?
25.
Oh, okay. So they're pretty young still. He is getting his degree right now. He wants to be a teacher. He's simply asking, was he the a-hole for, at that birthday party, bringing up the fact that the brothers aren't there anymore?
Correct.
As it being a slight?
Therefore, he labeled them irresponsible.
Yeah. So I guess I'll wrap it up like this. He says it in the title. Him implying that stuff at the birthday party and making it as if people are bad guys for moving on and growing up, that's wrong. He clearly doesn't understand the dynamics or what's going on within his own girlfriend's life, but he tries to speak as if he does. He's going to find out, though, that him pining after this girl the way he has will probably end up making more distance than he knows. You are 100% the a-hole, OP.
Well, the small consensus on this one is that definitely the a-hole. Let me point out, they have only been dating for 1 month. And he's talking about getting...
What? Did I miss that?
You missed that.
Detail?
They've only been dating for 1 month.
No.
And he said almost 1 month.
Oh, no.
He's talking about getting a house on the coast. He's
Getting
talking about understanding the family dynamic.
I didn't realize we were talking about 1 month.
1 month.
I only really keyed in on was that he was 21 and he's young. So obviously he's going to speak like that. But you've only been dating for 1 month, my guy? No.
Yes.
I'm blown away. Oh, man. You need to pump the brakes a little bit before you... Oh, no.
But let me go ahead and read one commenter that, honestly, I love the writing style and it made me laugh. So let me go ahead and get this out. This post has me giggling so much. I love it. I know 21-year-olds hate to be told they don't know shit, but honey, you don't know what you don't know. Most of us in the comments have been 21, and all of us were stupid at 21. Sure. But even at 21, not all of us were this naive. Your rose-colored glasses are practically fluorescent. Your girlfriend runs minor errands for her parents, and you talk of her as if she is a slave to their dotage. Her 30-year-old brother is selfish for having a business. Her 18-year-old brother is selfish for, checks notes, going to college? What world are you living in? In what world is growing up and moving out of the house selfish? The mind reels. You have offered all these possible, completely fantastical living situations, and she has rejected them all. Not because her decrepit 50-something parents are reliant on her to head to the grocery store occasionally, but because she relies on them to finance her influencer life. You think a 21-year-old future, LOL, social studies teacher is going to be able to maintain her in the lifestyle to which she has been accustomed? She is hedging because she does not want to move in with you. Full stop. I hope your love stands the test of time and you are together and in love for the rest of your lives. But that potentially is literally a dice roll. There is no such thing as true love. There is love you work on and build and grow. You aren't even at the blueprint stage to building a love or life together. You think because you feel so intensely and overwhelmingly connected that it means something. It doesn't mean anything. It means you are 21 and in love. It's easy to be 21 and in love. It requires nothing but hormones and rose-tinted glasses. But the work of love is hard, and most relationships don't survive it by running on hormonal fumes. You don't know her. You know how you feel about her. That is not the same thing. You can get to know her. But if you think that what you feel now is going to last a lifetime, you are delusional. Your love might grow into something that is even better and long-lasting, and I hope it does. But it won't if you think what you feel now is what true love means. It isn't. It's the delusion of youth.
I completely missed the stop on the 1 month relationship problem.
You thought they were together.
I thought we were a couple
teenagers.
years. Yeah, I thought we were talking about a couple year relationship. I think I looked past it because at 1 month, how many people get invited to their boyfriend or girlfriend's birthday party only a month into their relationship? Normally that doesn't happen like that, but everyone's different. Times are different.
And culture is different as well.
I mean, would you imagine dating someone in that first month, and if your birthday was coming up, would you have invited them to a family birthday party? Back when we were growing up, would you have ever done that?
No.
Absolutely not. But times are different. People are different. Well, hopefully the OP took the advice from that poster because he definitely sounds like he has a lot of growing up to do. But I can get it though. At 21, everything can be dramatized and fantasized and
fantastical.
Everything's going to line up the way it's supposed to, and it's always going to be this way.
And at the end, there's a happily ever after.
Yeah, that's not how life works, and he'll learn that. But that's the best part about life. Time may go on, but things certainly do stay the same as far as certain stages of life for everyone. It's very much like we all walk that path. So it's fun to see it.
It's just our choices make it different.
Yep. What was that, our last story?
That was our last story.
We certainly had some interesting ones today.
As we're getting into the spookier season, I tried to have Wednesday be the new spicy day, for the Addams family.
Wow. How long are you waiting to slip that one in?
A little bit.
Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you see in the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We are regularly posting on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We would also love to hear what your perspectives are on these stories in the comments section below. I would especially love to hear about what everyone thinks about the youth and being in love.
And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.